welcome to the Blue Sulphur Springs Pavilion. The thing that has kept us going for the whole time is small, large donations and the support that we get over the internet, on Facebook, whatever. I'm the chairman of a group called the Friends of the Blue. To paraphrase an old Groucho Marx saying, I would not be chairman of any group that would have me as a member. but we were desperate. To give a little bit of context, I think most people know, but give a little bit of context, George Washington Buster in 1834 built a 200-room resort. In 1838, the pavilion was built. The 200-bed resort was much like White Sulphur Springs, Hot Springs, Sweet Springs. Folks came from all over for healing waters, healing sulfur waters. Around in the late 50s, due to economic conditions, the hotel or resort in essence went under. It was replaced temporarily by a seminary for Baptist ministers. During the Civil War, both the North and the South used it for a variety of uses, but primarily as a hospital. In 1864, the North burnt the hospital down. It's not a political statement. I think it's a historical fact that the North burned it down. In 1992, for the first time, the pavilion was put on the National Register for Historic Places. It was a big help to move the project forward. I think everybody believes in divine intervention and believes in miracles. In this case, it did not happen because of divine intervention or miracles. It happened because of the work of a lot of people. So the theme today is but for certain individuals. The first individual would be Rebecca Lineberry, born a Fleshman who owned all this property back here and gave some of it to her daughter, Kathy, and 2 acres in the pavilion she donated to the Greenbrier County Historic Society. It was a huge sacrifice for her. It had to be very hard, but it was the best way forward as a nonprofit to try to get the thing stabilized and restored. Because of her courage, generosity, and vision, we are here today. The biggest but for is Rebecca Lineberry. The second but for is the Friends of the Blue, a group of people with a variety of skills, many of whom spend their later years in historic promotion, historic preservation. I would like to introduce the Friends of the Blue and ask them to stand, and that we could clap for all of them. Skip Diggins, Kathy Bolt, Irma Smith-Cadle, and Margaret Clay Hamrick. On behalf of the Friends of the Blue, this is not in a program because I knew Margaret would cut it out. We would like to give a special but for to Margaret. But for Margaret, this thing was elaborate just a little bit. Everybody get out. Margaret is A to Z. She has restored a couple of her own houses, structures, and buildings in Alderson. I don't know about structures, but buildings in Lewisburg, and now this structure in Blue Sulphur Springs. Margaret is, as I said, A to Z. She can conceptualize, she can retain, architects, engineers, archaeologists, deal with permitting agencies, deal with financing agencies, raise funds, promote, but most importantly, spend endless hours dealing with the minutia and the detail of getting this thing built. She was a construction manager, so it's very special. The next but for is the Buster family representatives. I said George Washington Buster in a group were the first that built the hotel and built the pavilion. And here to speak on their behalf, on the Buster behalf today, is Bobby Kamisha. Bobby is the third, I'm not sure what the iteration is, but he's the third grandson. Fourth. I knew that's not bad. That was close.
We do have a third here, though.
There is a third?
Yes.
So he's the fourth grandson of George Washington Buster and the son of our dear friend Margaret Commission and her husband and your dad. They're wonderful people. Bobby.
So I beg your pardon to begin with. I'm not. Oh.
Ah, sorry. I'm not going to give it up.
Can you all hear me? Yeah. So public speaking is not my forte, but my mother asked me to come speak here. She really wanted to be here herself, but unfortunately she couldn't make it. First thing I'd like to do is to get everybody up here that is also a descendant of George Washington Buster. So we're mostly great-great-greats, but my Uncle Henry here is a third great. As is my mother. Okay, so this is mostly the words of my mom. I've added a little and taken a little away here, but this is mainly what she wanted to say. We're here today representing my grandmother, Virginia Blackwell Buster Crawford. And she was part of the last generation of Busters that grew up here and grew up right there in that house. We're here to celebrate the restoration of this beautiful Greek Revival Pavilion. It's pretty safe to say that my grandmother always considered this place as her home. We spent all of our early lives growing up around all kinds of things that came from here. And my mom still has a number of them, and they're slowly making their way to the Greenbrier Historical Society. My grandmother spent her life drinking water out of this spring. She used to come down after they sold the place in 1954. She would come out here usually about once a month and fill up 2-gallon jugs of water and bring it back to the house. Personally, I couldn't stand the stuff. I thought it smelled like rotten eggs, but she loved it, and my mother loved it, and she did it her whole life. And when she couldn't do it anymore, she made us come out here and do it. It was so important to her that when she passed away in 2001, we came out here and filled up a jar with the water, and we put that into her casket. We all want to thank Mrs. Lineberry for the gift of the pavilion and the land. To the Greenbrier Historical Society, we really want to thank the unbelievable tenacity of the Friends of the Blue Committee, and especially Margaret Hambrick. I'd also like to add that we really appreciate the effort that Margaret has put into keeping us all in the loop with the progress of the project. And I know that my mother, who really wishes, like I said, that she could be here today, really does appreciate that. It meant the world to her. Okay, that's it.
The next but for is the Fleshman family. The Buster started it, the Fleshman family kept it going, and then did the ultimate of putting it back together and giving it to the Greenbrier County Historic Society. Here to speak on behalf of the Fleshmans, and there are a lot of Fleshman in this area, is John Fleshman. John Fleshman, I believe, if I get this wrong, straighten me out, Kathy. John Fleshman is the grandson of Louis Fleshman, and as I said earlier, Louis Fleshman was a farmer and he drove a truck. And Dad said, Louis, when you back that truck out, you've got to look before you do it. And he said, Abe, this truck is bigger than any cars coming, so they'll have to look out for me. That is John's grandfather. His aunt is Rebecca Lineberry, and his first cousin is Kathy Bolton. John?
Thank everybody. I really do. I thank you for being here, and I thank you for the opportunity to represent our family. It means a lot. It means a lot. And on behalf of the entire Fleshman family, I want to welcome you in the dedication of the pavilion at Blue Sulphur Springs. We would like to thank the Greenbrier Historical Society, the Mills Group for their contract work, and especially all the donors and numerous volunteers for their tireless work to make this day happen. Also, a special thank you to Miss Margaret Hambrick. She very instrumental in this, and she was in the writing of the grants to make this happen. And thank you. And this was a hard one. Mike Dolan, very, very special person. He was an electrical man out here. And he went home to be with the Lord this Sunday. I'd like to take just a short moment of silence as we think about Mike. We thank you. When Granddaddy, Louis Fleshman, purchased this land in 1964, he knew and appreciated its history and passed that down to his children. Our family is rich in a lot of memories out here. The biggest part of us was growed up out here in a very special place. And one of the memories is from my dad, and I can attest to it. This water is some of the coldest water you'll ever drink. It's absolutely good stuff. And many of my cousins have the memory of spending time here, walking around the columns, climbing on the wall, tasting the water, saying it was nasty, but it's good. It's good for you. And one of my cousins had a trip here, and she had a chocolate bar in her pocket. Well, needless to say, that chocolate bar melted, and that's one of her memories. And when Granddad was passing, he asked for a drink of water. And Uncle Lee and Linda come around here and got it for him. And that was a special memory. And then after Granddad passed, Aunt Becca and Uncle Joe Limer, they were the caretakers of this. And I'm sure that Aunt Becca and Uncle Joe both spent many hours talking about the things, the visions they had and everything. And I'm sure that they're very happy that Kathy picked it up and was instrumental in this, and we're glad of that. And in 2013, Aunt Becca donated this property and the structure and to the Greenbrier Historical Society, and the rest is history. We're all witnesses of the effort. And we're sure that all of our family is pleased with what's going on here. And that's good. And looking back, this has made the future a whole lot brighter. And we as a Fleshman family thank everybody and thank all the others.
Thank you, John. The next but four is Michael Mills and the Mills Group. Michael is probably the premier architect for historic preservation in the state. He does projects all over the state. And I asked him one time, I said, Michael, what's the most important project you ever worked on? And he looked at me for a while and he said, this one. And I said, I bet he tells all the girls that. But the more I thought about it, Michael has put TLC into this project from day one. Michael is a great architect, but his demeanor is something special. If I was ever in a foxhole, I would want Michael Mills with me. Michael.
No, I didn't pay him to say all those great things, but thank you, Alex. He's part of our marketing team. But no, it is truly the case that this is one of my most honored projects, truly is. And at the firm, we have a mantra that we really design on the principles of the past and preserve for the future. And what better iconic structure to put those words to is the one behind us here. Just kind of want to walk you through a little bit about process, a little bit about history, and a little bit about the timeline and how we got here. We begin every project with what I call a roadmap, and that roadmap starts with an R for research. So I want to read to you a little bit about the history that we found in our research, because I think it's important of how this structure evolved and how we got to its preservation activity. John Henry Benjamin Latrobe, son of the famed United States Capitol architect Benjamin Latrobe, is rumored to be the designer of Blue Sulphur Springs. Latrobe was a frequent visitor to the Western Virginia Springs and listed as a patron of the White Sulphur Springs Resort during the summer of 1832 and 1834. Latrobe also designed the cottages in a similar Greek Revival style for the White Sulphur Springs, which are known as Baltimore Row. In the 1835 travel book entitled Letters Descriptive of the Virginia Springs, it first described the pavilion's plan. The entry describes the resort with the following prose. In front of the hotel is a beautiful plain, perfectly level, perhaps 300 yards wide, 600 yards long, flanked on both sides by mountains, and bearing near the house a delightful grove of sugar maples, one of which we still have laying in the field here. And along its center, a wide, smooth walk leading to the springs and baths. One of our party, who had a fine taste in drawing, left a beautiful design for a building to cover the spring. It is to be Greek, square, presenting 4 fluted columns, surmounted by an entablature and pediment on each side. So just one piece on that. You can't believe everything you read. We don't have 4 columns here. We have 12. And, but it did set forth some information for us as we started our due diligence and research here. But as a preservation architect, the most important thing you need to do is be on the ground. Really touch things, see things, and observe things. And thus the O in roadmap is observation. We would have loved to have found those blueprints, those sketches from Latrobe, just like finding a Monet in your attic, but no such luck. We have done that before. We've been blessed to find blueprints, but not for this one. But we were fortunate through the archives at the state, through the archives at the Greenbrier Historical Society, the archives at WVU, had some wonderful photographs, some of which you all have seen on the sign out front here on the gate. And that really led us to some great information. That led us to find that in 1920-ish, we had a small storm event here that took the roof off. And that actually resulted in actually lowering the columns. We suspect that the columns, one of them may have broke off, maybe several broke off, and the roof fell off. So in that event, they ended up lowering all the columns, approximately 18 inches, and rebuilding the roof in not its original architectural style, but really just a one to stabilize the structure and be temporary in nature. And that's what we found when we came here in 2013, that same structure. We were very fortunate to also have some interior photos. We had some photos that showed us the depth of the area here behind me. What you see today is not the historic depth of it. It's approximately 3.5 feet taller. And that's the case because we're sitting kind of in a floodplain. And we didn't want to really create a cesspool around the pool. We wanted it to be accessible to folks to be able to visually get into it. The other thing you see here today is, this is a works in progress. This really, we have some future plans of maybe some solar for electricity, some other things that could happen to really bring this piece of history back to life and be an event center and be a place somebody might get married, somebody might celebrate a birth, all those great things. It's truly a one-of-a-kind structure. We didn't have a pattern book to go from. This structure's never been built anywhere else in the country. So we did a lot of due diligence on site. We did a lot of slowly painstaking investigation on site. We spent a couple days here early on, and then we spent much more time as it went on. As my wife and I drove here, we reminisced that this is probably one of my most visited buildings. We've been working on it for 10 years. It's like a child. It truly is. My wife publishes West Virginia Living. It's been published in her magazine several times. And she attested that it's probably one of her most photographed buildings of her history and her company's history. So it's special to me, to both of us. I want to just kind of take you through a couple other things. This truly wasn't just a preservation project. This truly was a restoration project. It was a reconstruction project. So we preserved the old bricks, the capstones here. But we had to restore the foundations. When we first came here, we thought that the columns were all sinking because what you would see in between each one here is they actually rose up, the capstones rose up. But as we got into it, we really discovered that the bricks were absorbing water and pushing those center capstones up. It was just the opposite of what we thought. We had conceptually designed a micro pile system where we were supporting each one of these. But as we excavated, we found that there was a very solid stone foundation. It was not an issue of it sinking. It was taking in water like a sponge and pushing things up. So that was a restoration effort. We reconstructed the roof, and that was reconstructed with photographic evidence. We didn't have those drawings, didn't have those precious blueprints. We had to reconstruct it using photographic information, and we were blessed to have that. We were the trusted advisors to the Friends of the Blue. We guided them through some decisions. We did not take the purist approach of preservation. We took a really sustainability approach. We made some decisions to use materials that were synthetic in nature, that would endure long-term maintenance. We decided to add some flashing here underneath the capstones to prevent future water getting in and repeating that expansion of the brick. So we did some things that were mindful of the future and for it to preserve itself well beyond this group. So that's an important thing. We were guided by the Secretary of Interior Standards. Randall's going to speak here in a minute, but that was very important. It's being put on the National Register in 1992 allowed us to apply for some grants. So we were awarded a SHPO grant, State Historic Preservation Grant, in 2019. And that allowed us for some future work. But those principles of the National Park Service, of the Secretary of Interior, really had guided us throughout this whole process. I'm going to kind of just walk you quickly through the timeline and mention some of the partners, because there's a lot of great talent and trades folks that were involved, and engineers too. So my first site visit here was May 28th, 2013. We responded to an RFQ, a request for qualifications, by the Greenbrier Historical Society on May the 31st of 2013. We interviewed on June the 24th, and we went all out for that interview. We actually created even a 3D video of this project, of this building, in its current state, and showed how it would change over time to be restored. We even had a virtual cow that mooed in our video. Margaret remembers the cow. But we really wanted it. Why did we want it? Because we felt this was a very important structure in the state's history. And frankly, we knew we had a client behind us that was going to make it happen. They were going to take it to the end. And that's what we look for in a great project. You know, great architecture only happens with great clients, and we were blessed with this project. This project, again, was like one of our children's. We fully expect to watch this blossom beyond what it is today. We went under contract in mid-July of 2013, and our first site visit was a 2-day visit where we had lifts on site. We had the archaeologists on site. We had Pentree, which later became Thrasher. John Tuck was here. At the time he was with Pentree. They were our site engineers. We had Carol Stevens, who was our structural engineer, and several folks from my office here for 2 days. We had cultural resource analysis. They were the archaeological folks. So there was a complete archaeological report done with this 2-acre plat. And we presented on January 14th, 2014, the conditions assessment and the stabilization plan. Very quickly, we went to the stabilization plan because we had a column on that side of the building that was out of center by almost a foot, and we were afraid it was going to fall over. So the initial project, phase 1 of construction, was to stabilize that one column. And at the same time, we took the gables off the then roof to lighten the load. So that was our very first project. And that project was awarded to Tom Anderson Allegheny Restoration on May the 5th, 2014. We were fortunate to have somebody on site named John Smith. John Smith had spent his career really working for Allegheny Restoration. It was mentioned about the water and its healing power. Well, John had a little bit of arthritis in his elbow, and every morning he would soak it here in the pool, and he claimed for sure that solved his arthritis. So great stories from John, and John always had a story. So he did a lot of digging here on site, a lot of helping with us of investigation. One thing to note is these projects, especially a project like this, you can't hurry it. You know, I mean, it's not like building a house. You know, we can't frame it one day, side it the next. We had a lot of unknowns, frankly. There were a lot of things with the structure that we just didn't know how it was standing. You know, what were the issues around it? How was the water getting into the cistern, the pool? So we really had to take it in phases. And ultimately, there were 4 phases of the project. And the other reality was we didn't have $1 million check. We didn't have all the money at once. So that was just the nature of the project. We had to be strategic in how we spent the money. We had to be strategic so as we did work that wasn't going to collapse it and be a rubble pile here in the field. So that was a really challenge of this project, was to kind of take it in bites and be smart about it. 2015, in August, we were under contract for another phase of stabilization, which was funded by the State Historic Preservation Office. That project was further stabilization. We actually were able to take the columns. These are brick columns. Each is not a solid pour. They're built out of individual bricks, and we actually wrapped them in fiberglass. And we did that so as that they would stay together and they would be structurally stable as we worked on a future phase of the foundation work. That was really important. The other thing we did was further stabilization of columns, cabling them off, things of that nature, and we did some digging around the foundation. We found for certain just how it was supported, where the stones were, things of that nature. An important piece of that was also archaeological work, additional beyond the initial study. So we had the McBrides here. I think they were members of they're here today, Kim. And they were very, very important folks. They donated a lot of time, and they were here every time a shovel was turned or a backhoe came in to move some dirt. They were there to make sure that things that were found, whether it be a foundation or pieces of plates and stuff, were cataloged and inventoried. So that was important. The third phase was in 2019, where we contracted with Buckeye Construction out of Waterford, Ohio, and they were the ones that did the foundation work. One would think this is a pretty simple foundation. Well, you had to stabilize and support each column as you go, and we literally took the wall apart and poured what would be called a grade beam, a concrete beam reinforced with steel, and then put the brick back. So we have a continuous rim of a foundation that will last forever. It really is quite a foundation and well engineered. So that was the third piece. And the fourth piece was in November of 2020, we hired Schleif Construction out of Lewisburg, Martin Schleif and his team, and they were the folks that put the roof back on. They did the reconstruction of the roof that we designed. They whitewashed and stuccoed the columns. They brought a whole new life to the structure in that effort. That really kind of capped it off, and that wrapped up here in March of this year. So I truly feel that we've left for our grandkids and beyond a very special structure that has a wonderful history of local folks here, history of our country, frankly. So we're very proud to be part of it, having worked on it, and continue to be here as a resource. So thank you all. Appreciate the time and the opportunity.
I actually knew all that, but he's younger and more credible. I got things out of sequence. I actually one day took cheese out of the refrigerator and stuck it in a cupboard. So you shouldn't be too harsh on me that I got Janice out of sync. Margaret early on decided that rather than go through all the arduous, very difficult task of creating a new 501c3, that we would use the 501c3 of the Greenbrier Historic Society. From day one to this point, they have been awesome. The Greenbrier County Historic Society, by the scope of their work, by the support they get, and by the staff that they have, has to be one of the premier, if not the premier, county historic society in the state. Under the leadership, it is something you all should be very proud of. Under the very capable leadership of Janice Cooley, the current president, it keeps moving forward. The Greenbrier Historic Society was a huge benefit to the Friends of the Blue, but I think this is mutually beneficial to the Greenbrier Historic Society. It broadens geographically a little bit, and this is a signature project. It's a signature project, and I think it really adds to the Greenbrier County Historic Society's portfolio. So I think it's clearly been mutually beneficial. Janice?
Good morning, everyone. Isn't it nice that the sun is starting to come out? It's bright. There's no threat of rain so far. But on behalf of the Greenbrier Historical Society Board of Directors and staff, I'd like to welcome you out to this dedication ceremony. And I'd like to take some time for the Board of Directors to raise your hand or stand up for everybody to recognize you. I think we'll raise your hand and wave. And also our Executive Director, Richard Loveland. Richard's been with us since January, so these people, as well as the staff back at the North House, have worked very hard under the guidance of our amazing Margaret Hambrick, which we really appreciate so much. And we work with her on a daily basis, so it's been wonderful doing that. We also want to give a special welcome to members of the Greenbrier Historical Society that may be here today, and thank you for your support, our special donors, and well as our honored guests. So many have given so much to make this day possible. Their time, their funding, research, as we talked about before, creativity and labor, but most importantly, we've all given our passion for history. And that's what has brought us here today in front of this beautiful pavilion. Thank you all for your commitment, for without you, it would not be possible. This pavilion, although molded with brick and mortar, has become alive again over the last 10 years. It'll continue to provide a message about the history it represents and the community that never forgot it. So again, we welcome you and thank you for your commitment to this project and making this day possible. Thank you.
The next bud forward would be the state of West Virginia with their very able representation, the curator of arts, history, and culture. Close?
We're not playing horseshoes or tiddlywinks.
It's well, I got to introduce you.
I can do that myself.
No. You'll like it. Okay. Hey,
Let's see.
well, we can talk afterwards.
Okay.
Randall Reed and Susan Pierce are great. Everything that we've ever needed in terms of funding, in terms of support, they've been there. They've been huge. Randall Reed, obviously, with the force of his personality and his effort, both, is outstanding. Near the end of this project, when we were almost done, we got a critic on Facebook. Everything that we had done was wrong. And this critic said, the head of historic preservation in Charleston, West Virginia, is not an architect, he's a singer.
A good one.
And I wanted to grab that guy by the shirt collar and say, Randall Reed is not a singer. He's an opera singer.
Thank you, Allie. Okay, hi everybody. My name is Randall Reed Smith, and I always say it is with great pride that I serve on Governor Jim Justice's cabinet as his curator for the West Virginia Department of Arts, Culture, and History. The mission of the West Virginia Department of Arts, Culture, and History is to identify, preserve, protect, promote, and present the ideas and artifacts of West Virginia, building pride in our past accomplishments and confidence in our future. Today, I want to talk about pride and confidence, and blessed are the brief. I've learned that, so here we go. pride in what you've accomplished, pride in making us proud of who we are as West Virginians, the chosen few of God. And for those of you not from here, we adopt you. And confidence in the next two people I'm going to introduce who are not in the program, but I need them here because I couldn't do what I do without them. Delegate, Senator, I need you up here. Just do what I tell you to do. In 1966, President Johnson signed the two most important acts ever in the history of our country: the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Historic Preservation Act. We have great partnerships with the federal government and with the state government. These two people to my right, back in the legislative session, we came across some extra money. I called them and I said, we want to help finish the blue. And they said, absolutely. So we were able to put another $33,000 here. And it's more important to me that you all hear why they support what we do here. And yesterday was my 17th anniversary in this position. Today I start year 18. And it has never in my 17 years been as good as it is now for arts, culture, and history in our state because of our governor, my third governor, fourth if you count his party change. And it's very important, it's a different administration. And I shouldn't get political, but this fallacy that Republicans are bad for arts, y'all have got to stop that. And my legislature, who have never said no. Senator, why do you support what we do?
Thank you, Commissioner. You know, it's hard to add to what's been said, but this is irreplaceable. You know, we all realize that. And, you know, as the legislature, we're trying to lay the groundwork for the next 100 years of West Virginia. But we build that on our past, and we can't forget our past, and we have to maintain our past. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate the work that's been done by all of you to preserve this national treasure.
Thank you. Blessed are the brave. Many years ago, I left Greenbrier East High School and went off to the Marine Corps. And when I got to Marine Corps boot camp, it's 13 weeks of grueling, difficult training. Blood, sweat, tears, physical fitness, shooting. But in the midst of all of that, almost on a daily basis, we were drug into a room somewhere and taught the history of the United States Marine Corps. And just knowing the history of what people had done before us, their service, their sacrifice, always motivated you to keep going through that day and to get up the next day and continue. And all those years ago, I guess I didn't understand until then the importance of history, but the ripe old age of 58, I tell you, it truly is so important. And we stood over there and talked a few moments ago with the Mills group, and I just said, you know, we have Margaret, we have the Historical Society, we have the group that's done this with the blue, and I'm very concerned that maybe the next generation or the generation after that will not have this same passion to not only restore and remember, but to teach our history. And so we have to be more dedicated than ever through telling the story, working, and investing. So history's important.
There you go. Thank you all. I do have greetings from the governor. Sit down, Allie. Here we go. Greetings from Governor Justice. As governor of the great state of West Virginia, it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's celebration of the Blue Sulphur Springs Pavilion. This remarkable Greek revival structure stands as the only remaining design from the renowned Blue Sulphur Springs Resort. In April 2013, Ms. Rebecca Fleshman Lineberry demonstrated incredible generosity by donating the pavilion and 2 acres of land to the Greenbrier Historical Society. Today, with great delight, we announce the opening of this captivating tourist attraction and invite everyone to experience the beauty of our great state, and might I add, the greatest state. I sincerely thank all involved in renovating this historic venue and congratulate you on a job well done. Your efforts in preserving West Virginia's rich history are truly commendable. On behalf of the citizens of the Mountain State, please accept my sincere best wishes. I know the Blue Sulphur Springs Pavilion will be cherished and enjoyed by countless visitors for generations to come. Sincerely, James C. Justice, the greatest governor ever in the history of West Virginia.
Hey, Randall, come here just a second, please.
Oh,
Today is Randall Reed's 17th, it's the beginning of the 18th.
I've been in state government 17 years and 8 months.
He was
And I apologize if I offended any of you all, but I really don't care.
So he's been in state government for 17 years. Let me just give a little background on how we arrived. Susan called Margaret last night and said,
Oh, I forgot to thank Susan. Go ahead.
yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we thanked her.
Well,
She's my
I
best.
can't do what I do without her.
I know that very well.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but so Susan called us and said it's 17th anniversary. He would like yellow roses. So I was tasked with,
I just like a nap.
I was tasked with getting the roses. I'm very inefficient, so I was running behind. I went to Kroger's, and I had forgotten my pocketbook. I did not have a gun to kill myself. I'd left it at home, so I went back home, got my pocketbook, came to Kroger's, and as God is my witness, there were 17 yellow roses, not 16, not 18. There were
don't fib.
I am not making this stuff up.
God's watching.
I know God's watching.
He's still working on me.
We realize that.
I know.
So there are 17. They're not all the same. I did the best I could to get them up here. Congratulations, young man.
I do want to say thank you to Michael Mills. He's been there, gosh, Michael, 17 years. How have you put up with me? I wouldn't work for me. And Susan Pierce, I am by statute the State Historic Preservation Officer. That's the way that works. But Susan Pierce has been at this 37 years, and she is amazing. I'm sorry she cannot be here. I've learned everything from the greatest staff anybody's ever had in state government. I mean, really. So just so you know, real quickly, I have all the arts money. I'm the State Historic Preservation Officer. I have all the state museums. I have public broadcasting. I have all libraries. I have volunteer services, the National Coal Authority, and the archives. If you ever think we can help you in any of those things, would you please call me? And I just want to say hello to my good friend, former delegate Jeff Campbell back there. Thank you for all your help. And this is the biggest and best family anywhere on God's green earth, and we're called West Virginians. So if you're not from here, come and join us. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Michael, is Michael?
Yeah. There you go, honey. But that's for you. Alex just gives everything away.
I'm so sorry. Michael Shirico, I'd just like a shout out to Michael Shirico. He was the staff person for Evan Jenkins when he's congressman. Then when Carol Miller became congressperson, Michael stayed on. And he's now doing a bang-up job promoting Marshall Health all over. He was instrumental in getting Congresswoman Miller to come out here, and she was very impressed, and I think she's been a champion ever since. Today, speaking on the Congresswoman's behalf, is Darian David. I think probably an upgrade from Michael. She was, I'm kidding.
She is.
Thank you.
She definitely is.
Sorry to take your microphone
Thank you. I'm Darian David. I'm the Congresswoman's District Director. She unfortunately could not be here today. It was very remiss to miss this, but talked highly of her visit with Michael last time and how beautiful it was and how much I would enjoy it. So I'm thankful I can be here with you all. If you'll indulge me, I have the following greeting from her. Friends, I was honored by your invitation to participate in today's dedication of the Blue Sulphur Springs Pavilion. I regret that I'm unable to be with you today, but send my best wishes for a successful event. It was my pleasure to offer support for funding towards the restoration efforts of the historic Blue Sulphur Springs Pavilion in 2019. I'm glad to hear the restoration is complete and look forward to seeing it sometime soon. Greenbrier County is such a gem in our state, and I know this pavilion will only add to its beauty. This local landmark is a nod to the past as the only remaining portion of the 19th century mineral spa that once stood in this place, while being a symbol for the future with the tourism and future visitors it inevitably will attract. Thank you to all involved in making this project a reality. A special thank you to Chairman Alex McLaughlin, Margaret Hambrick, and to all of the Friends of the Blue Committee. Thank you to the Greenbrier Historic Society for their tireless work to preserve Greenbrier County's rich history. Thank you to my friend, Curator Randall Reed Smith and his team at the West Virginia Department of Arts, Culture, and History. And thanks to all of you for being here. God bless you all. Carol D. Miller, Member of Congress. Thank you. Copies for you and all of the Friends of the Blue.
We'd like to recognize a few other people. They've already been recognized, but I have in my memory and I can't take it out.
We don't want to get you off your feet.
No. Senator Senator Jack David
I'll be your
Woodruff.
prompter.
The thing that most people don't realize, and I tell him every time I see him, in a very short time in Charleston, he has become chairman of one of the most important committees that there is, a government org. It's not sexy like finance and judicial, but it's very important. He was former commissioner in Summers County. He should be very proud, and we should be very proud that the folks have enough confidence in his leadership to put him in that key position. Thank you very much, Senator. The second person would be Delegate Mike Honecker. Delegate Mike Honecker, as he said, was a Marine.
Is a Marine, you're never not a was.
Not a was. You know, what's the old joke? You can always tell a Marine, but not much. But he's been in law enforcement all his life. He's head of 911 up until recently. Coached the Eastern Greenbrier football team and will continue, as I understand, to coach the Eastern Greenbrier wrestling team. And he still finds time to be an excellent delegate. He and the senator helped go to Randall Reed, get money for the Blue. He's helped with the home tours, helped Margaret's home tours, and special to my heart, he took the lead on doing something that needed to be done a long time ago, and was take care of the troopers. We appreciate it very much, Mike.
Thank you.
I would also like to acknowledge Jeff Campbell, my brother from another mother. We bleed green and gold, Spartans forever, and occasionally we find time to talk about politics. Margaret one time had a need for immediate letter of support from a local politician. Jeff was working full time. In an hour, he came up with the perfect letter. If we would have needed 50 of those letters, Jeff would have come up with it. We appreciate you very much, Jeff. Now I'd like to recognize the county commissioner, the current county commissioner, our lifelong friend, Tammy Shiflet. You got it. Tammy came to West Virginia as a farmer. Her next job was executive director of the Greenbrier County Historic Society, surprisingly. And now she's a very able commissioner. I reminded her and to tell the other commissioners that this is Greenbrier County, because I've heard lately there's a lot of 3-0 votes. I mean, Greenbrier County does not have 3-0 votes. It's always 2-1. So, no, I'm kidding. They've done. When I think, I've got the microphone so I can tell this story. When I think of Tammy, I think, of a radio show in Charleston that had a contest to name who was the most important person in the world. And people came up with the names, or most notable person in the world. People came up with names like JFK, President Kennedy, Princess Diana. And one guy called in and said, Puff Daddy. And the announcer said, Puff Daddy? Why would you pick Puff Daddy? And the guy said, he's everywhere. He's everywhere. Commissioner Shipley is everywhere. I would also like to recognize my longtime friend, a friend of my dad and his dad were the best of buddies. Former Commissioner Mike McClung, he's been an excellent public servant for a number of years. I will say that now I'm with Mark Mack. Yeah, there's video that Mack McClung, his grandson, can jump out of the gym. There is video of Marcus McClung, who played football over at Virginia Tech, could jump out of the gym. In the Alderson gym, there is a mark of how Mike could jump. It's about like that. It's a proof that genetics are not everything. I'd like to also acknowledge the fine mayor of the great city of Alderson. Travis, we appreciate you. Thank you very much for coming. And Travis has made this has come a little. Today's event was a little part of the whole July 4th celebration, and we appreciate all you do. Thank you. Is there somebody else that I missed?
Thank everybody here.
Well, Marcus got to thank everybody. You ready to leave?
No, sir. I already cut that rope.
All right, Margaret, I think I got everybody.
Thank you, Alex. I have a few housekeeping things before I do some final thank yous. First of all, please stop at the table over here and sign our guest book. Just like the register for the Blue Sulphur Springs Resort, somewhere 150, 200 years from now, we'll want to know that you were here. So please sign over there. We'd appreciate it. Donations are still very welcome. We're not quite finished. We've got some interpretive signage left to do, and we've got to work on a little bit of drainage here. So donations are always welcome. There's a little country church about 4 miles from here. It's called Blue Sulphur Church. And if you go this way to my left and then turn right up Snake Run, you'll find it in about 4 miles. And they're having a big hot dog sale today. So if you're hungry after this, go patronize that nice church and have a hot dog. And I'll bet there's a bunch of wonderful desserts to go with it. There are some books for sale over here on my left. They're the home tour, driving tour books, and they have about a 6-page history of the Blue Sulphur Springs. Not quite as much on the construction side as Michael gave us, but a lot on the history side. So if you want a souvenir from today that has the history of the Blue, pick up one of those books. And then back at the farm, actually back at the Historical Society, we've created a little pop-up exhibit. Our folk there have done a pop-up exhibit of the Blue Sulphur Springs and the pavilion. So if you have a chance, they're open from 10 till 4 today and then open again on Wednesday. So stop in or any other time and see that pop-up exhibit on Blue Sulphur Springs. It really is neat. So there are so many people to thank. And you've heard a lot of them, but I'm going to give you a few more. Early on, Howard Cadle came out here with his little digging machine and helped us find the old drain system and get it open as the very beginning of getting this site ready for future work. We appreciate Howard. He has a broken bone and he's in recovery, and we wish he could have been with us today. The Tuckwillers, I'm looking at them right here, and we were talking earlier. They hauled a wagon and fence posts and a lot of wire out here and a charger before we had electricity, and they're responsible for this high tensile fence system that goes around the Blue. We had to start keeping the cattle out of it in order to start working on it. Larry Sears, who lived right over there, was our first groundskeeper. He did the mowing, he and his family, and started making this lawn look like it looks today. And Jimmy Jones, with the assistance of Jeff Hamrick, carries on that tradition. We thank him for that. We thank him for the beautiful flags out on the front. And also for the board fence. Joe and Mary Clay donated the lumber. Jimmy and Jeff put in the board fence with the gates. And after today, the little pedestrian gate will be open. And soon we'll have some rules going up on the fence about how you can use the space. It's really here for individual use. If you want to rent it for a big event like a family picnic or a wedding or something, call the Historical Society and they'll work with you on that. But individuals are welcome. The Greenbrier County Commission provided the matching money for the first grant from the State Historic Preservation Office that enabled us to do our historic structures report. So we very much appreciate that. And when we needed a little extra, because the archaeology piece came in a little higher than expected, the County Commission came through with that too. So we thank Mike McClung, who is on the commission there, and the other commissioners. The Daywood Foundation gave us money for emergency stabilization. They were one of the first small grants that we got, and every bit of it went into making sure that column still stood when we were ready to work on the rest of it. The James F.B. Payton Foundation gave us a significant contribution early on, and I cannot tell you how many times I leveraged that money.
Say no to Margaret.
No. Remember, he said that.
It can't be done.
But I would be working with a foundation or someone, and they say, well, yeah, but we require a match. Can you match it? I go, yeah. And then we'd use their money and somebody else's money, and then somebody else I would talk to, and they say, but can you match it? And I go, yeah. So I got a lot of mileage out of that first contribution, and we really, really thank you. Our successful Kickstarter campaign, that helped us document that there was support from hundreds of people all across the country. Again, it was small contributions for the most part, but one large one. Mary Swim, who I wish was here today, donated $2,500 because she wanted the carriage ride provided by the Tuckwillers, and boy, did we do it upright. We started down at the Diamond House in a beautiful carriage with a team of horses, and they came all the way up here, pulled in. Unfortunately, the blue didn't look quite like it looks now, but she still loved it, and we really treated her royally. In addition to her, the other high-dollar contributors for the Kickstarter campaign were Sam and Betty Groves, who are sitting out here right now, Tom and Linda Dameron, and I know they wish they could be here, Nada and Richard Smith, and John Marshall. This really helped us document the support for the project, and we have used that information time and again. We are grateful to Drs. Kim and Stephen McBride for their donation of archaeological services. And as was said by the Fleshman family representative, John, we're grateful to Gil Merritt and Merritt Electric for putting the electricity, helping us hide it inside the pavilion, and to Mike Dolan, who worked a lot on that project. His loss this summer in a tragic accident was a loss for everyone. Thrasher Engineering and Hanna Engineering helped with some of the earlier engineering work that helped us get the permits we needed from the Army Corps of Engineers. Division 9 of the West Virginia Department of Highways. Oh my goodness, didn't you just love that road you came in on? We thank Sean Veers and the crew for that, but we also thank them because about 3 weeks ago, they made sure that Spring Valley Road was patched, Blakers Mill Road was patched, the Blue Sulphur Road was patched, and Hamilton Ridge Road was graded and graveled, all so we could have a very smooth home tour. And we did have a beautiful one. So thank them and all the District 9 Division of Highway folks for helping. They live here. They live in this area. And they're proud of this too. And they did their bit to help. So we really appreciate it. And finally, we especially thank the Department of Arts, Culture, and History. Randall Reed Smith, Curator. I love the title Curator. That is unique. and the State Historic Preservation Office, Susan Pierce, Deputy Director, and now we know why she's called Deputy Director, for their financial support, most of which was matched by the ongoing support of the James F.B. Payton Foundation. So we thank them, and under the direction of Angus Payton, and we're honored to have him here today. So thank you all. And now we're going to invite some folk up to cut the ribbon. If we could get all the Friends of the Blue, everyone here that's in the front, please stand up and move toward the ribbon. Mayor Copenhaver, Commissioner Tencher, Commissioner McClung, we've got plenty of room up here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, cut.
Michael, pull that. There we go.
Oh,